Welcome back. We are going to talk about something that is near and dear to both of our hearts. And if you follow us on YouTube, you will have heard us talk about this issue many times. Vanessa?
Sleep.
Or let's say lack thereof.
Near and dear, I'm like, yes, actually it is near and dear.
It is near and dear to our hearts.
Ever since becoming a parent, it's something that we dream about.
We dream about sleep dreaming.
Yeah. Actually, I'm entering the zone now where I actually do sleep because my kids are older, but I'm about to re-enter the non-sleep territory.
Right. So that's why we brought with you today Krista Guenther, our sleep guru, because she has helped us through many late nights, many non-sleeping days.
We can officially call you our sleep guru because you helped Melissa with her baby, and you got me out of a toddler bed that I slept in for a year. So
she's just doing the double bed now.
Right. That's okay, but if it works for you, it's okay.
Now.
It's okay.
So we're going to, of course, thanks for being here. We're going to start with some sleep myths because I think that this is a great first place to start, in our conversation around sleep, right?
Right. So let's debunk some myths that are out there. Starting with my question for you, because I am going to be delivering a baby in 3 months, and I hope to breastfeed. I breastfed both of my kids for almost a year for both of them. So there's a myth out there that when you breastfeed your baby, that the sleep isn't always the best for the child doesn't sleep as well if they're on formula. They sleep better. Sorry, that's jumbled. But
no,
is that true?
And I think there's maybe some legitimacy to that myth in that formula-fed babies. Formula is more difficult to digest. Breast milk will be much more quick to digest. So sometimes what we see in that newborn stage, when few things matter more than sleep, is that parents are being woken up very frequently and needing to feed a lot. But really, when we start getting past that stage and you move along, whether it's formula or breastfeeding, it's not a magic bullet to formula feed your baby and then think that that's going to make sure sleep is going to improve.
Because I do remember thinking, though, if only my child would take a bottle of formula before bed, even though I was a total breastfeeder, solely breastfeeding, I do remember having that thought, and I remember other people saying to me, if she would have a bottle of formula before bed, she'd probably sleep through the night.
Well, I actually, ended up doing that with my first, and I brought a bottle in because I think one of two things happen. Either you get to that place where they're just so hungry, and people are they're ready for solids, they're ready to start eating. So you start to give them something at night almost because you want them to sleep. Mm-hmm. But I did.
Well, you'll believe anything.
You'll believe anything when you're But I actually gave my son a bottle of formula, and it did nothing. It did nothing. And I woke up so mad the next morning because I was like, it didn't work.
Right, because if there's disruptive wakings that are happening, regardless of what you're feeding your child, they're still going to happen. So it shouldn't be a solution for families, or they shouldn't be a deterrent for not breastfeeding or encouraging formula necessarily.
You really need to just assess the sleep issue.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we're going to go up to the fact that you cannot tell a tired child doesn't act tired.
That's a great one and a great myth as well, because often you'll see kids will get sleepy and you will see sort of those tired cues where they're rubbing their eyes and maybe starting to zone out a little bit, and that's great, and the average child might have a lot of those sort of cues. If you miss that though, and if you've maybe not been paying attention and you miss it, you're very likely to have a child who's actually going to sort of shift into a sort of a wire.
This is what happens to our kids. Yeah, I was going to say, they get to the second wind where I have this conversation with people. If we're staying too long at nighttime at someone's house, I'm like to my husband, we gotta go. It's 7 o'clock. And he's like, people will be like, oh, look how much energy they have, though. They're not tired. And I'm like, no, you don't know what's going to happen in 20 minutes.
And then you're in the car and they're screaming at you.
And I'm so glad you said that about the second wind. That's exactly it. It's adrenaline, it's cortisol, it's noradrenaline. It's a chemical response in our body that actually acts to keep our bodies awake and keep us going.
But it's so funny how so many people have said to me, like, your kids are not tired. I can see them right now. And I'm like, no, they're on the second minute and they're going to crash down.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Okay, and another myth is that children and babies, can they catch up on their sleep?
So you've kept them out late and you've had that hit of adrenaline. So maybe after one night, you'll sort of all recover from that and feel pretty good the next day. But imagine those children who actually don't get a chance to catch up, and they're having chronic sleep shortages day over day, week over week, and similarly to what parents probably feel in those newborn stages, it's maybe okay for the first few days, but it's after weeks and months of doing that becomes excessively exhausting. So there's the unlikely that you're going to be able to catch up on that sleep. Once that sleep is gone, it's sort of missed for good. And what we know too about adult sleep and those constant influxes of adrenaline and cortisol and noradrenaline is that it can have actual real changes to your brain function, and limiting memory, limiting learning. So we can only infer what sort of impacts that might have on
we
children.
saw a study once that was talking about teenage depression, and it's linked to all the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Right? And that there's not actually teenage depression, it's the changes in the brain from the lack of sleep.
And also, a child who may really need to be on a structured sleep pattern and having an early bedtime, who has no structure or whatever, and is labeled having behavioral issues, when in fact they don't have behavioral issues, they are exhausted or ADD or, there are kids who have these things, but a lot of kids are probably labeled when they're exhausted.
We both have really strict sleep with our children. And I could see it, during the holidays or during summer or, during a trip, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, we can see the behavior changes. And we're like, you throw your hands up and you're like, it's because they're not getting enough sleep. Right. So you can really see the impact.
It triggers so many things when they're exhausted.
Totally.
So it's something that I think you just learn about your own child, right? Like, the patterns and...
Absolutely.
So saying that, learning about your own child, there's tons of parents that will say, my child just doesn't need a lot of sleep.
That's a great one too. I hear that one a lot, that, parents come to me and I think my child just doesn't need a lot of sleep.
Right.
And this is really interesting because the National Sleep Foundation in the U.S., they are sort of the de facto standard for sleep really in the world and one of the foremost research bodies. They went and revised their recommendations for sleep in 2015, earlier this year. And actually, instead of just recommending a realistic range for children, so the average, 0 to 3 month old might have a range of recommended sleep between 14 to 18 hours. They actually went and recommended that it's not advisable to have a child at this age who's going to have less than 11 hours of sleep.
Right.
So it's becoming even more relevant that children who are getting inadequate sleep it could be real detrimental effects for those kids.
Right. And it's okay. Some people, we were talking about napping earlier, some people have a really hard time napping their little ones, right?
Mine didn't nap until she was, 15 months? She refused.
And for me, my kids, if they didn't have a nap in the morning and in the afternoon, 5 o'clock was a nightmare. So we had to have, but at the end of the day, I think that our kids probably slept for the amount of time, the same amount of time, because my kids wake up at 5:30 every day.
And mine sleep until 9:30.
Right. So we're exactly.
Not anymore, though.
You're looking at a quantity in a 24-hour period, right? And for the most part, if that quantity is pretty good and meeting the needs of that child, you're probably going to be okay. Whether the allocation of that sleep is just sort of a collection of long and short naps, or whether it's a solid night.
Okay, and then I have one question: does a night hawk child truly exist?
The night hawk.
Only because I asked, because some parents, our kids go to bed earlier, but some parents will allow their kids to stay up later. So even 9:30, 10, and say, oh, my child is someone who doesn't go to sleep early. They just never have. Right. Is that a real state? So the night hawk versus the morning lark, right? Yeah. Okay.
And so there does seem to be some evidence that certainly exists in adulthood. There's, to be honest, there's not a lot of great sleep research about kids, because it's
who's doing that,
and you can't. Those kids can't tell you how they're feeling through a sleep study, and you find an ethics board that will pass sort of a sleep deprivation study for kids. But you can have a body clock that might be adjusted a little bit later.
If you're sleeping in.
Exactly. So if they're going to bed a little bit later, but then they're also potentially sleeping in
it's like your kids waking up at 5:30 in the morning.
That's right. We're morning people. Thank goodness.
You're going to bed early and you're getting up early, right? So the morning lives.
This has been so amazing and so much amazing information for us.
And I'll be calling in 3 months. So actually, I'll let it go a little longer.
You're already on my speed dial, so we're good. Thank you so much again for being here with us today. And for more information on Krista and her services, you can go to sleeporific.com.
And stick around. We'll be right back.